Tom, how you doing? Michael K. Don LaGreca.
I'm good. Thank you for getting that NHL reference in
there. There you go. Do you like watching baseball more or hockey?
I tend to probably sit down and watch more of a hockey game in completion than I do a baseball game.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I don't know why, but I do.
Who do you follow, Boston?
Yeah, big Bruins fan. So, yeah.
Now, I would think, because you made the Hall of Fame and means you're one of the greatest baseball players who ever lived, that there aren't second thoughts. I mean, is there a part of you that would have liked to have played hockey? When people ask me that, I guess my answer is that I don't have any regrets, but I'll always wonder what would have happened. And I think that's natural. When you grew up playing sports and you loved two sports and you had an opportunity, I was fortunate to have an opportunity to play two sports and I had to pick one. I'll always wonder what would have happened, but I certainly can't regret or second guess my decision. I'd be hard pressed to think that baseball or hockey would have worked out any better than baseball did, but there's still a part of me that wonders how far I would have gotten, but I'm pretty certain I wouldn't have had the success in hockey that I did in baseball.
And Tom, you faced Mike Piazza a lot more than you pitched to him. You were teammates with him the last 3 years with the Mets. So was that enough time to be able to really tell us what kind of catcher he was defensively? Was he a good guy to throw to?
He was. Look, Mike got a rap for his defensive skills, I guess, and probably unfairly. Look, I think everybody knows he had a hard time throwing guys out. That was probably his weakest part of his game. But that doesn't mean he was a bad catcher, and I think sometimes that happens. I think people look at his inability to throw guys out and they just lump it all together and say, he wasn't a good defensive catcher. But I can tell you that in terms of blocking balls and doing all those things back there, he was fine. He did a good job with all that stuff. And I can tell you that when it came to game planning and preparing for who you were getting ready to face and trying to come up with plans to attack hitters based on what I did as a pitcher and what my strengths and weaknesses were, he was very good at all that, and he was very good at going out there and remembering it all and trying to execute it all with you. So that side of it was all good. But like I said, I think unfairly his defensive catching skills are questioned simply because he didn't throw a lot of guys out, and I think that's unfair.
Your former teammate Al Leiter has always told me, and he reiterated what you just said, Mike was a better receiver than people gave him credit for, called a good game, was always prepared. He said, and if you didn't like his throwing, you sure liked his 3-run home run.
That's what I said. I said that earlier today. I said, I don't care if somebody stole, or guys stole a couple bases up during the game. If he hit a 3-run home run, it's all good. I don't care.
Now, how much did you face Griffey? Did you have much success with him when he was at the Reds?
It was kind of off and on. There were times where I got the better of him. There were times that he got the better of me. But look, he was, both those guys were the kinds of guys that could change the outcome of a game in a heartbeat. They were both guys that single-handedly could carry their teams. And I can tell you as a pitcher, when you're a guy that opposing pitchers are constantly identifying as the guy that I don't want to let beat me in the lineup that I'm getting ready to face, you're a special player. And both of those guys did that and were able to do that through the course of their career, and that's why they're Hall of Famers.
When you look back at your numbers, and I don't know how much you compare them to guys of your era and eras before, but do you become even prouder of your numbers considering when you pitched and in the steroid era and guys that might not have been doing it the right way? Do you ever wonder what those stats could have been if those guys didn't do anything?
I do and I don't. I guess being in the era that we played in, being an offensive era, whether it was, all because of steroids or juiced balls or smaller ballparks, whatever the case may be, we played in an era where clearly there was an effort to enhance the offense in the game. So knowing that I played in that era and was able to pitch through it and accomplish what I accomplished, it gives you a sense of pride. But I don't know that I ever really looked at it and thought, if guys weren't using steroids, how many more wins could I have had? Or if the game wasn't so offensive minded, how many more things could I have done? It's hard to quantify. You can't put your finger on it and say, well, if this didn't happen, then that would happen. I don't know which fly balls that went out of a ballpark to beat me because they were home runs instead of fly balls. I don't know how many times that happened or how to equate that number in terms of wins and losses. I just know that, we played in an era where, like I said, it was tough to pitch, and I think we were more focused on how do we stay ahead of this curve? How do we continue to be successful given the circumstances in the game? And that's all we kind of worried about. But, I think for me, when I look at my career, I look at the number of games that I started and wasn't hurt. I looked at the innings that I pitched, and the innings that I pitched pretty much on a year-by-year basis, and I think those are the things that I'm most proud of.
Tom Glavine, the Hall of Famer, is with us here on the Michael Kay Show now. Obviously, with the Hall of Fame announcement yesterday, there comes the discussion of Bonds and Clemens. And Hall of Famers are in a very exclusive club, and a lot of the older guys said, there's no way that any of those PED guys should be in. Now, the two I mentioned, certainly they don't have anything that sticks to them. There's certainly been innuendos and connect the dots. Would you, in fact, have a problem if either made the Hall of Fame?
And I wouldn't, but I can tell you, I probably am. I know for a fact, having been a part of conversations the last couple of years with some of the older Hall of Fame members, those guys have much more of a problem with it than I do, or I think our generation does. Look, again, I think, it's easier for them to look back at it, having not been a part of it, and have a little bit different view maybe than we do. I'm not condoning what guys may or may not have done. I'm not making excuses for them, but I think for us it was a part of what was going on. So I think we're probably a little bit more numb to it maybe than some of the older guys are who didn't deal with that kind of stuff, and I think therefore they have a stronger feeling in terms of how it impacts the integrity of the game. But look, if they get in, they get in. If they don't, they don't. I'm fine either way. I'm just glad that it's not a decision I have to make, but certainly it seems as though through the passage of time, their numbers seem to be going in the right direction.
When you watch what the Mets have with those four big studs going, which of the four impresses you the most, and which one do you think could actually be the best of the bunch?
Oh, my God. That's hard to say. They're talked about together, obviously, which is great. But individually, I think they all have different strengths and weaknesses. And look, I think Harvey's obviously a little bit more polished than the rest of them at this stage of the game. I saw him pitch. I did a game in Atlanta a couple years ago before he got hurt, and it's still one of the best games I've seen pitched in person in the last 5 to 10 years. It was phenomenal what he was able to do and how hard he can throw, but still changes speeds and still locates. It's not just a here you go, try to hit it game. He was hitting his spots and changing speeds, and that was fun to watch. But the rest of those guys, there's something about them each one of them that's really, really special, and they were fun to watch last year. And even with Matz gets a little bit less attention, obviously, than the rest of those guys, and I think Wheeler's got a chance to be really, really good too. So, look, the Mets are in a really, really good position when it comes to those guys, and very similar to what we had in Atlanta in 1990 and 91, where you looked at that rotation and thought, man, this is a really good place to start. And knowing that you're going to have one of those guys running out there every day for 5 nights, it's certainly not going to be a series that teams are going to look forward to coming in and playing the Mets in a 3-game series, knowing they have to face any one of those 3 guys in a short series like that.